For the folks who are new tonight, this is that time of the meeting whereby you can speak to the commission on any item that you want to that is not already on the agenda. If you want to talk about the sign ordinance, wait until that item comes up. This will be the time if you want to tell us how good the Planning Commission is doing for the city of San Juan Bautista or something like that. That would be the time. But if it's an item on the agenda, please hold it, and so that all the comments will be as a package. Staff, do we have any cards? Or?
No, I have no public comments except for on an item on the agenda.
Okay. There being no public comments, we'll take this now next to an informal project review. Are there any informal project reviews? Basically, what we're talking about here is that if you have a project, a bigger item, you really don't want to come up and have your architect do a package deal and come up here and find out this isn't what the city wanted. By having an informal situation, you can bring it up to staff, they'll put you on the agenda, and you'd be able to say, here's what I want to do at that location. And you might get some feedback that you hadn't expected, or you might get some support. But at that point, you'd want to go and talk to your architect and say, listen, here's what they said the other night. Make it good. Are there any items, staff? None. Okay. We'll let the informal project review go. Next, we have consent agenda items. Posting of the agenda, posting of notices, and approval of minutes for the November 5th meeting. Do we have any comments? I do think I have one. No, I don't. Okay.
I would make a motion that we approve all three items at one time, A, B, and C.
A second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Okay, next we have a public hearing. Public hearings are a little bit more than just a discussion and action by the commission. This is a very formal situation because these are documents that go forward with the land, and if you have to go to court or something, you want this to have been done in a proper manner and all bases covered. So the first item we have for public hearing is a consideration of approval of a parcel map for a minor subdivision. And it'll be at the Christopher Ranch at the north city limits. Oh, I'm sorry. Craig Clower. And he wants a minor subdivision at 804 1st Street. I was giving you two for the price of one here. Staff, can you tell us what's happening?
Yes, Chairman and members of the Commission, the applicant is requesting a minor subdivision, a parcel map application to divide a 33,000 square foot parcel into two parcels. The parcel is 101 feet in width and about 330 feet in depth. And to divide it equally into half, it would create what we classify in planning as a landing strip lot. So I approached the owner and asked him to submit a flag lot application where it gives a square lot up front of approximately 80 by 100 feet, and then the flag lot would be the larger piece in the back. And so the application was submitted based on our recommendations for a better land use geometry. It conforms to our zoning regulations, minimum square footage. It conforms to the general plan as an R1. The application is adjacent to and proximity to the San Andreas earthquake fault. And so on the map, you'll see there's a designated area that's non-buildable adjacent to the earthquake fault. And that doesn't affect the building envelope that would be up on the flat portion of it. The CEQA guidelines stipulate that on minor subdivisions, the Planning Commission can take action on minor subdivision land applications as a categorically exempt project. And it's under the California Environmental Quality Act, Article 19, Section 15304, Class 4A, minor subdivision or minor alterations to land, and Section 15315, Class 15, minor land divisions. The findings to support that category exempt are in the staff report. If the Commission decides to grant the exemption. And the staff report also highlighted some conditions of approval which we feel is appropriate, that the Planning Commission may approve conditionally or deny the tentative map. But if the Planning Commission approves the tentative map, the following conditions should be made a part of any approval granted. The applicant record a parcel map with the San Benito County Recorder's Office. The applicant install concrete driveway approaches to the parcels conforming to city standards. That the applicant install all public utilities at each parcel, including but not limited to sanitary sewer, water, electrical, gas, telephone, and cable TV, conforming to city standards and utility standards. And the applicant submit a site plan for the grading of the driveway, and the applicant underground electrical utilities and cable TV service to the new residential structures on each parcel.
Thank you, staff. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to come up and tell us, meet the commission? Mr. Clower.
Yes, sir.
Right. Basically, you got a staff report. We'd like to hear from you also. Anything you'd like to add to it?
Roger covered most of it. What we're looking for is to subdivide the lot into 2 parcels and came up with the best plan by putting the flag lot there. For future, we'd like to put 2 single-family houses on that property.
I'm glad you work with staff because I personally, as a planner, as a commissioner, I think it's a lot better division than just having, like you said, 2 landing strips there.
Right.
And I think I separate the concept of a lot of record and building site. And so you're going to make 2 lots of record, but your building site is clearly in the back and clearly in the front and not 2 side-by-sides.
Correct.
And wait for the next window.
Correct.
Okay. No other comments? You have no problem with the conditions?
No, sir.
Okay.
And I'd just like to call your attention, we had thought about, there is Thomas Lane that runs down and services 3 parcels there.
Oh, right.
Of why we couldn't access that, but the grade separation between the flag lot and the road, the Thomas Lane, is about 7 to 8 feet, and so it's impractical to access it because of that retaining wall and the differential in elevations.
Notice something else about 7,000 feet in the back that looks like this.
Slopes down considerably.
Yeah.
So would that retaining wall need to be reinforced to make it higher? And because the new driveway will.
Yeah, the first section of the road starts from 0 and goes up, and then the wall is only about 3 feet deep at that point. Then it'll come in. We will probably ask the applicant to take a side yard setback of probably 10 or 15 feet at that location to stay away from the retaining wall.
Mr. Chairman, that retaining wall, I do have the drawings and all the specs of when it was built because it happened to belong to us.
Yes. I remember that.
And it was all upgraded from the original drawings
Yes, yeah.
to satisfy the
It's
city
a
and the
masonry
state.
wall with a foundation footing, so I'm sure it's more than adequate. But we, as a general rule of thumb, we ask that the building set back there so that the cone of bearing stays away from the active portion of the retaining wall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now the public. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the project first?
I have a speaker card from Margaret Galvan.
Okay. Ms. Galvan?
Good evening. I just have a comment. And, well, my first comment is that I knew it was inevitable. This day was coming. I have lived at 707 First Street for many, many years. And so I saw Chapito plant his garden on this lot that we are talking about. And then I saw the Jimenez family plant, their corn. And so it's been beautiful and wonderful to witness this and be part of this tradition of sharing the wonderful goods that these wonderful people have done these past years. But one of my questions was answered. I'm glad to hear that it is a single dwelling that we're talking about. It's also my hope that the street will remain a one-way because of the narrowness of the street.
The First Street?
First Street. And also, just that it would be, the dwellings would be conducive to the dwellings in the neighborhood. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do these houses require any action by the commission? Do the houses require any action by the commission?
No. Once the lots are created, he will submit the building plans to us, and then we'll make sure it meets all the setbacks
Okay.
there. Yeah. And Mr. Clower is the same individual contractor that's building the one you split for the Manning at the corner of 4th and Monterey and 3rd.
So that means no design review?
Yes.
Staff will handle that?
Yes.
Okay, this project will not come back to the planning commission. The houses will go directly to the staff for building permits. So the final design of the house will be up to the owner. You may wish to talk to him if you have any comments, but it's beyond the commission now.
I have one more question for the city manager. I walk the way every day, but I really don't pay attention. Is there a sidewalk and gutter in place already?
There is gutter and sidewalk, and there will be a concrete driveway that will go and access this, and then the curb and gutter will remain along the frontage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, public comments. Anyone want to speak? Anyone else want to speak for? Okay, anyone want to speak against? Okay, feel free to speak then.
My name is Michael Ponce. I live at 803 First Street, right across the street from the proposed site. Is the public able to see the tentative map which you guys are looking at now before you make a decision?
Oh,
There's a binder out there.
yeah, it's
and
made
this is a
public.
binder.
Out here, under?
Yes.
Is it in this one?
Yes.
And that would be under 6A for Mr. Ponce.
While he's looking at that, could we take a minute to ask from our point of view, or do we need to
Oh,
wait?
one more. Do we have any written comments for or against?
No.
Okay. Well, he's looking that up. Commissioners, any comments?
I'm wondering, since it's the back part of it borders on the old El Camino Real, I believe, are there any evidences of the El Camino Real left down there that we need to protect in some way? With some method?
Well, he's not
It
going
was-
down there.
He's
It
not
was-
going down there,
No,
but
he's-
does
yeah,
it
it
go
was-
clear down to?
It's fairly covered in shrub and brush.
I
We
see.
couldn't get access down there, but the setbacks from the Alcos Prioli Safety Hazard Act, the earthquake zone, allows that slope will be undisturbed and remain intact.
I think it's natural.
I have another question.
Okay.
In the comments, it says the setback and building envelope would be designated to be outside the seismic earthquake zone. So what does that mean?
It will not be in that zone that I have as non-buildable.
Okay,
It'll
which
be
is
outside that,
down on
yes,
the fault.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. That's the way we terminate it, is you have to be outside the Alquist Prioli zone.
I have one question. What's the size of the water line going down that street for that project?
That's a 4-inch.
4 inches?
4-inch, yeah. And it will remain one-way direction heading into the northwesterly direction.
And none of the construction equipment will block block Thomas Lane. It'll all be on First Street.
All be off First Street, yes.
Mr. Ponce, do you have you made a decision?
No, I'm good.
He's good. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Let's see. Does the commission want anything else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing then and get to something. I'm suggesting that the conditions of approval on page 3 be incorporated in the resolution. We talked there about the CEQA requirement. I think that we could put whereas subject to the approval of the subject to the following conditions and list. That way you pick up one document There's proof that it went through CEQA concerns, and the conditions of approval are there. The documentation of approval is there. And I think rather than having 2 or 3 or attaching a staff report, just the facts, man.
That's a good suggestion, yeah. And we can...
No problem.
When you approve the resolution, if you decide to approve it tonight, is that you approve it subject to listing the conditions of approval on now therefore be resolved paragraph.
But we don't have an approval, a
Well-
resolution in our packet.
Yes,
Is that-
you do.
Yes, it is. It's on the back
What is it?
page.
The back of
Back to the application.
The application
Find
and
the
on the
application.
back side of
It's
the
first page,
application.
first and second.
two. Ah,
There you go.
okay.
Okay, basically a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista approving a minor subdivision at 804 First Street. Remember, this document goes to the property, not to the applicant. He can't sell the property and hold up this document. It's issued to the property, so when the property transfers, this document is automatically with it.
And before you entertain any motion or dialogue on that, I would advise you just to satisfy the California Environmental Quality Act first.
In our staff report, we were given the whereas and wherefores of the Environmental Quality Act, Article 19 SX. It requires that you make findings prior to getting a categorical exemption. The categorical exemption is right there. It does not need anything beyond that. It doesn't need an environmental impact review or any other document. So, we can find that the project is consistent with the general plan, that the project has been reviewed in compliance with CEQA, that's the California Environmental Quality Act. The project is consistent with the residential land uses and will not have an adverse effect to the surrounding area. The project is consistent with the density of the zoning district. The use will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons living or working in the vicinity or be materially detrimental to the public welfare of the city and its residents. That would be the findings of CEQA. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I think this project meets all those criteria.
Okay, we can take that as a consensus and we can approve it in our resolution.
Or separate.
No, it's in there. The Commission conducted a public hearing January 7th to review an application to divide a 33,437 square foot parcel into 2 smaller lots at 804 First. The Commission received oral testimony, there were no written comments, and public input on the minor subdivision application. The Commission received and reviewed the planning staff report, considered information on the environmental quality regulations, and testimony presented during a public hearing. In light of the whole record before the Commission, determined the minor subdivision qualifies for a categorical exemption under Article 19, Section 15315, minor land divisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Commission, the City of San Juan, hereby approves minor subdivision PM 2014-101, subject to the following conditions, and those are the 5 that we listed. So I would ask for a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution as read and include the 5 conditions of approval.
Okay, integrated. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous for approval. Thank you.
May I just add one more?
Sure.
I'd like to thank Ms. Galvin for her comments. It's hard to see things change. I appreciated your reflections on the past, but I appreciate also looking forward because it will benefit the city to have a little bit more housing, and it'll be a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, we have a second public hearing. Consideration of approval of a parcel map for a minor subdivision. APN 002-220-006. And that's in the city. And 12-100-012 and 12-200-006. That's in the county. And I'm doing all the numbers because that makes the record complete. It's the Christopher Ranch at the north city limits. The applicant is San Benito Engineering and Surveying. Okay, staff, can you tell us what's happening?
Yes, members of the commission, Chairman, the Subject parcel is an 89.62 acre parcel that lies within two jurisdictions, the County of San Benito and the City of San Juan Bautista. That portion that lies within the City of San Juan Bautista, the applicant is requesting that that be subdivided and made as a separate parcel. The division would be along the current city boundary lines as it reflects on our general plan map. The division will split the lot into a 30 acre and a 59 acre parcel that will, and the 59 acre will remain in the county, and the 30.62 acres will reside in the city, and that will be subject to urban services of sanitary sewer, water, and street improvements and stuff like this. It will also pave the way that when we prepare our general plan and our land use designation, that we can designate that land use appropriately because it will be a separate parcel within the city limits at that time. Again, the benefits associated with a minor subdivision is its planning for future circulation, housing opportunity, and expansion of urban services, and it would improve our property tax base and inflow of revenue for sales tax as well as earmarked for impact fees. Again, the minor subdivision of this caliber, even though it is going to be subject to additional environmental review at the time when application is made for subdivision, this project qualifies for a category exempt because it's a minor land division and two parcels. Again, the criteria in Article 19, Section 1350 of minor land division, you make the necessary findings, and we've enumerated those as in the staff report. And the actions to support those findings would be the conditions of approval. And we will mention those now is the conditions of approval that they will file a final parcel map with the county recorder, fixing the boundaries. The applicant shall offer a storm drain easement 20 feet in width to the City of San Juan Bautista along the northwesterly boundary line of the Creek Bridge subdivision extending to San Juan Highway. 3, the applicant shall grant a public right-of-way 6 foot in width and a public utility easement 6 foot in width along 3rd Street. That the applicant shall grant a 20-foot wide storm drain easement along the northwesterly line of Lot 30 of the Creek Bridge subdivision, a distance of 332 feet, northwesterly to the northwesterly corner of that certain 0.53 acre parcel of land designated as Parcel A Detention Basin. And finally, the last condition would be is the applicant shall grant a natural drainage easement 30 feet in width along the meandering creek alignment of the west fork of the San Juan Creek.
Thank you. Is there a representative from San Benito Engineering and Surveying?
Well, there is, and she's back here at Tan Hall. I'm Bob Fulton here on behalf of the Christopher parcel and the property. And the reason we're here, as Roger and Matt have explained to you, is, and as you read off the numerous parcel numbers at the start of this, is we were always under the impression there were 3 separate parcels. And what we found is there's really one legal lot of record that's 90 acres. And this is, in some ways, a housekeeping in separating the city parcel from the county parcel, and also clearing up a number of the drainage easements, the public right-of-way easement that was requested over on the 3rd Street side. And it allows the city portion of the parcel to be addressed in the general plan update as you're going through that. So that's the reason we're here. If I can answer any brief questions, I'll probably have to defer them to Ann.
Do you concur with the conditions of approval?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now the public comments. We've heard from staff and the applicant. Oral comments. Anyone in favor want to speak in favor of this minor subdivision? Does anyone want to speak against it? Okay. Staff, do we have any written for or against that you've received?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. There being no comments, or written or oral, we'll discussion by the commission. Commissioners, comments?
May I begin?
You may begin.
I just want to be sure, I should go on record as saying that I live in the Creek Bridge subdivision, so should I recuse myself, or?
If you don't have any material gains or there, and it has nothing to do with the subdivision itself, because it's going to be around it, I would say that you could vote on it, you know, but if you feel uncomfortable, you could recuse yourself.
I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to show you a picture of the old ranch. This was the Lavanino Ranch. And this is a photograph that hangs in the home of John Lavanino and probably his siblings. This was his father's ranch, which is now the Christopher Ranch. And one of the stories that we heard is that during the war, the family stored vehicles belonging to the Japanese during, when they were taken to internment camps.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So I just, as Ms. Galvin pointed out, this is what it is now, and the past is wonderful.
Wow.
But
And
Good
each of the
story.
family members is pictured across the landscape in front of their homes.
yeah, and actually, none of the buildings are included in the city's portion of the lot, right?
That is correct, yeah.
So-
There was a little jog on the line there where they kept the house
Separate.
into the...
Still in county.
In the county,
Okay.
yeah.
So one of the questions I had is, could we or would we want to annex the whole property into the city?
Yeah, that is a consideration, and I think that would be up to the applicant in the future to annex the remaining 59 acres into the city. We're working on a tax sharing agreement with the county. Currently, it's being reviewed by the county, and we're getting very close to crossing T's and dotting the I's on that, and that will pave the way for us to annex property into the city.
Okay.
For this particular parcel or others as well?
Others, yeah, right, yeah. I've been pushing for this tax sharing agreement for about a year and a half now because like the new reservoir site is not in the city. Elaine Reyna's house, half of it's in the county and half it's in the city. About a third of the cemetery is in the county and 2/3 is in the city. So there's a portion of Kathleen Manning's commercial project on the corner of Monterey and McCullamy Street. The nose of it is in the county and other parts in the city. So there's a lot of inconsistencies of our annexation, and we've been pushing forward for this tax sharing agreement so we can clean up a lot of those inconsistencies and bring them into the city.
What exactly is the jurisdictional boundary line between the city and the county? Is it, the whole property was in our sphere of influence, right?
Yes, the property's in the sphere of influence. The old boundary was adopted, I guess, when the city was incorporated or when LAFCO had jurisdiction, and it has been modified a couple times in the late 60s for some annexation out on the eastern portion of it, and so the boundaries have been fixed for a number of years in the northwesterly, northerly, and northeasterly direction. It hasn't been changed since I think it had been incorporated into LAFCO.
Commissioners, any other comments?
I got a question.
Okay.
Just curious as to why the facilities that are on the property, why is it county? Why was it chosen to be county versus city?
At this time, that we can't annex it, so we couldn't offer them to bring it in until our tax sharing agreement is solidified, and then we will obviously entertain that with the applicant and talk to them about it. Yeah.
Okay. Where are we on this thing? No other comments? Okay, we're back to the same situation again. We got that resolution. It tells us we had the public hearing to divide 89 acres. We took oral testimony. We're asked for oral and written and public input. Regarding the environmental issues, I think staff covered them pretty well. Projects have been reviewed. It's in compliance with the CEQA. We're consistent with the agricultural designation of the general plan. The project will not have an adverse effect on the environment and the surrounding areas. The project will not adversely affect the health and safety of persons living or working in the vicinity or be materially detrimental to the public welfare of the city and its residents. The project will encourage the orderly and harmonious development of the property in a manner that respects the physical terrain, environmental characteristics, density, and compatible uses. And that's from our documents. So the fact that if you find that that is true, I also recommend that we put this, therefore be resolved, subject to conditions, so that it's integrated as one document, and we should be doing that all the time now. So, do I have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the minor subdivision PM 2014-102 at 1149 Old San Juan Highway. That would be the APN 002-220-006.
I second.
Okay, would you include the subject to conditions?
Include where the
5 conditions.
Conditions of approval.
conditions of approval.
Okay, there's 5 of them. Okay, a second?
I second.
Mr. Miller? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Let's get those out. Next, we have some action items. The first one is to consider recommendation to the City Council to rescind the Formula Business Ordinance 2007-14. And rather than me mess it up, I'm going to ask staff to explain that to us, and we'll go from there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For some time now, it dates back to probably a year ago, where we've been talking about the effects that Ordinance 2007-04 has brought upon the city, where we have not been getting any type of interest into investment of our community. And the emphasis has been brought forth on a number of staff reports. And as I've discussed before, then the anti-business or negative tone of the ordinance has affected a lot of potential investments, both in commercial, industrial, as well as residential, because they see that in the essence of even supporting housing development, you need a certain amount of commercial activity to support that. So commercial development is very sensitive to the attitude of government and its regulatory process. To encourage new businesses to locate in the city, we must project a positive attitude. The city currently has 3 change franchise-type businesses, and each have integrated and assimilated into the community without altering the historical or cultural atmosphere. That is testimony to the past Planning Commission, as well as this Planning Commission, is to review conditions of approval and design and site and architectural things. San Juan has about 1,862 people, and maybe surrounding another 1,000 people around it. And so we're not going to likely attract large, big box types things. Commercial development is really supported by the market that it can serve, and our market is very limited. We feel that our diamond in the rough is the fact that we have a mission and a state park and early California history in the downtown area, and that draws approximately 1 million vehicle visitors a year. And the state highway trucks through us approximately 28 to 30,000 vehicles a day that goes by us each day. And with that in mind, the ability to attract and get that portion of these vehicles to stop, visit, utilize our facilities, and patronize our businesses is very important. And so we feel is that the current ordinance as it's written now creates this anti-business and negative tone, and we feel that it could be modified to reflect a more positive attitude. And we've had discussions with this before, and we've drafted some suggestions, and we've listed it on there, the previous thing, the ordinance, the way it lists here, and then we came up with a modified version of this that is essentially a very similar ordinance, but it gives it a different tone. It says is that For retail business and restaurants and visitors accommodation, the following findings shall be required: that the business offers merchandise and or services and adds to the diversity and character of the city. Although the business may have either another store located throughout the county, state, or region, the proposed or applicant business will complement and enhance the character of the city. Both exterior and interior appearances and presentation of the business is compatible with the existing scale and development, distinct architecture and pedestrian orientation of the town character, and results in an enhancement of the looks and feels, i.e. character, of the surrounding area. Signs shall conform to the city standards and design guidelines. Drive-through food restaurants shall be allowed in an automobile-oriented highway frontage commercial. Any new and existing buildings must follow San Juan Bautista's design guidelines to assimilate to early California vernacular. The historical district is in downtown will restrict formula businesses except for the vacant parcels that could be developed in case-by-case basis. Now, in our general plan, we've alluded to several policies that we have. The West Gate, which is the commercial and mixed use on McCullamy and Monterey. And we also have the South Gate, which is across the 156, and it's the commercial zoning on the Alameda that goes down to the Hollister-San Juan Road. And these are outside the core business district. And we felt that this proposed ordinance would better fit that to give you better flexibility to meet the interest for commercial development, but still retain the site and architectural control to make sure that it reflects our character in these areas. We've prepared a revised ordinance, and we've prepared a resolution that would essentially recommend to the City Council to rescind Ordinance 2007-04 and encourage them to adopt a revised ordinance, which we've outlined before. The revised ordinance really gives more footage and more opportunity for you for design review, and it also has the same environmental determinations to make the findings that it is substantially evidence that the proposed amendment will have potentially positive effects on the environment. So I'll turn it over to the Planning Commission for discussions there.
Okay, I guess I'd like to go first if it's okay with you folks. I think we're on the right track. I think the city, through its police powers, has the power to make decisions, and we need to put ourselves in a position where we can make decisions, not say, it is written, you can't do this. Well, you can change that, but it takes another 3 months, and I'm sure the applicants aren't too happy about that. So putting this in a condition so that we can react to something that's happening and work with or stop it before it gets too far, I think is positive. I do have a problem as I had with the sign code. There is policy and there is a law. And I would like to take a few sentences out of the proposal, which I believe are more policy or probably don't belong there, and leave the remainder. So looking at your proposed ordinance, here's what I'm suggesting, and we can discuss this afterwards. Take on number 2, eliminate the whole first line. The finding is the proposed business will complement and enhance the character of the city. That's the finding. Not that there are other locations, but what are we talking about? Will this or will this not? Yes, it will complement. Okay, the exterior and appearances, etc., are compatible with the existing scale of development. So we have to find that it's not a McMansion like in a small neighborhood. On 4, you find that all the signs that are proposed there conform to the city sign standards and design guidelines. Otherwise, it doesn't get through. So I would say, rather than shall, which is a law, all signs That's our finding. Drive-through food establishment shall be allowed only in auto-oriented highway frontage commercial. That is not a finding. Help me say it in a way that it is. I just spent some time on that thing. We need to say something that if you put down, you can only allow, you can only, it shall be, then it's a law. You want to have a finding. So, when the proposal comes through to you, if a drive-through food establishment is involved, it must be in a highway frontage commercial zoning district. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that clears it. And then number 6, take out all signs relating to the project comply with the San Juan Bautista design guidelines, period. I don't worry about new and existing.
You said signs, you mean new existing buildings?
Buildings.
Yeah, right, yeah.
That was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you say ended it after guidelines.
Let's see. All buildings relating to the project comply with the San Juan Bautista design guidelines, period.
Period. Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it would be more of editorial.
I would like to add on number 7, rather than the historic district in downtown, we should use the actual terminology on the National Register of Historic Places, which is, the actual terminology is the San Juan Bautista 3rd Street Historic District, but we could probably just put the 3rd Street Historic District.
San Juan Bautista 3rd Street Historical District.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Historic or historical?
Historic.
Historic District. Mm-hmm.
Did you say downtown?
Doesn't say, yeah.
Okay, so the 3rd Street Historic District will restrict formula businesses except for vacant parcels that could be developed on a case-by-case basis. So that gives us the power to act for the city. Okay, and then under B, application procedure, retail businesses, restaurant businesses, and visitor accommodations are subject to review and approval by the Planning Commission, period. They can fill out the applications with staff, but the finding is that above, and then the procedure is you got to go to the Planning Commission, and that's already in the ordinance as to what they have to do. That's how I saw it. So
And maybe what we should do is to review by the Planning Commission and or the HRB.
Oh, you got both.
Yeah, because you have, because if it's an application in the historical district, it'll have to be the HRB.
Yeah.
So Planning Commission or the Historical Review Board.
And probably.
And or.
The Historical Review Board does not issue approval.
Okay, so and or?
Let's think this over. Because the Historic Review Board only recommends to Planning Commission for final result.
Yeah.
So you want to take out subject to review by the Planning Commission and Historic, it'll take out and approval?
To review by the Historic Resources Board and approval by the Planning Commission?
I could live with that.
And
Yeah.
approval of?
See, this is where you want to, these little words come in handy.
If it's an application for retail that's outside the 3rd Street District, then it would go directly to the Planning Commission.
Right.
If it's inside the 3rd Street District, it goes to the HRP and the Planning
Yeah,
Commission.
they get it first. Yeah.
So that's why I suggested the Planning Commission and or HRB, and it gives you that.
Okay.
I think so too.
So that would be my comments. Do you have any others, Commissioner?
Did we want to go ahead to the ordinance itself, or?
No, let's stick with the findings first. Any other comments on findings? Okay. Is there anyone in the public who would like to talk about findings that we've just been talking about? For or against?
That means that each one of these issues will be dealt with on each application, and that these must be found in order for it to go ahead. Is that
Before we
right?
proceed, you've got to qualify.
For all those items
Anything.
that we've just reviewed.
Every one of them. So if the guy comes up with a sign package that just doesn't do it, hey, that's as far as you go. We're not going to do your project and do the signs later. That project better be complete. Proposal. and then the commission will take it as a package deal.
And when we say exterior and interior appearance, does that include landscaping?
I would think so. I would think so.
Because that
And that-
landscaping
and
often enhances.
the nature of the thing is it's design, site design and review, and architectural review. You know, so,
Where do
you
we
know,
put
so
that?
you're going to be looking at not only the building but the site itself too.
The whole site. And these findings must be approved in order to approve a large building,
Let's go back to 4.
okay?
Design guidelines. San Juan Bautista Design Guidelines? Isn't that the full name of it?
Yeah, and it should be capitalized because it's a,
Okay. Good. Okay. So, no other comments on that. Okay, you wanted to go to the ordinance then. So the ordinance then would pick up the findings that we just did and anything else we want to talk about. Would you like to talk about
oh, I just have 2 comments on item D. Retail business, restaurant business, and visitor accommodations will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, BASIS, in outlying commercial use areas, but excluded rather than maintained. I think it'd be more appropriate.
Good.
Where is that?
On
First page.
item D in the ordinance.
On the ordinance?
D. Delta.
D.
So rather than the word
Maintained.
maintained, I think it should be excluded. Excluded from the downtown historical
I
district.
concur.
Then on the next page, under visitor accommodations, the language, the term has been changed, but the definition hasn't. So it doesn't really work.
Oh, that's something else. When you rescind an ordinance, we may have to go back into the definitions and pick up any definitions that are in conflict with the new ordinance. That's something you want to look for, because you've seen legislation go through. There's, might be 2-3 inches of all the laws they're changing before they get to the one that they're putting in.
Because the definition, the term had been formula visitor accommodations. Now it's just visitor accommodations, but the definition still applies to formula business visitor accommodations. So
Okay. Staff, do you want to check into that? Because you say you may want to go back and look at it, look at a few others. Any other comments on that?
not from me.
Okay. Then there was a draft resolution. Now, when you pass an ordinance, passing an ordinance is the police power of the city. And they have the power to put a lot of regulations on you. And they had to have findings and justification for doing it. So when you rescind an ordinance, there better be some good reasons for doing it, whereas it should have been right the first time. And so this resolution has several whereases to show why the old one should go and the new one would be in the best interest of the city. All of this information is available at City Hall. If you ever want to see it before a meeting, just contact them. Maybe it's online, maybe not, but that's what you'd have to call to find out. Otherwise, we can read it or I can summarize it for you. Commissioners, what's your feeling on that? This resolution on the rescission.
I do have a speaker card.
Oh, we got a speaker card.
Carbon?
Glad to see you.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. As the city manager mentioned, this has been before you several times before, and I've appeared to oppose this ordinance several times before, and I have submitted written materials to you as well, which I would like all to be included as part of the record.
Very good.
At first blush appears that this is just a minor amendment to make the ordinance more user-friendly to potential developers in the city. But in fact, what you would be doing is substantially changing the land use development of this city. And the formula business ordinance was just adopted 5 years ago. It was very controversial. And there was someone who wanted to put a Subway sandwich business in the Windmill Market, and that was voted down by our city council at the time. You're all focusing on architectural review and making sure that, you know, the appearance fits within the zeitgeist, I guess, of the city. But that's not really the policy issue. The policy issue is, do you want fast food, formula businesses, and I'm focusing primarily on food and beverage, in our city? And I just saw the prior version of the ordinance. It allows formula businesses that add to the diversity of the city. Well, we have no formula businesses, so any formula business that comes in would be adding to the diversity of the city. It would be diverse, because we have none now other than the 3 that were mentioned. And then there's the auto-oriented highway frontage commercial area. That's Highway 156 in the Windmill Market area, I assume. And, you know, we were developing a specific plan at one time that was never completed that dealt with that whole frontage area and that whole area on the other side of 156. So now you're going to get piecemeal people coming in. It's, you know, it's not going to be an ordered, well thought out process on how we wish to develop that whole auto-oriented frontage area of our city. By putting fast food restaurants in the Windmill area, people are going to zoom in and zoom out. They're not going to come into our downtown and see, you know, what the city has to offer. You're permitting formula business to be put on a vacant parcel in our historic district. Is that something you want? You know, do you want a Subway sandwich or, you know, a Tutti Frutti yogurt place in the middle of our lovely historic downtown, even if the facade looks semi-historic? And then it also allows formula businesses at our east and west gateway entries. How about a Motel 6 right across from the Mission Gardens Apartments or the Valero Station? That would be a lovely gateway entry, wouldn't it? And then the clincher is that all of this is exempted from CEQA review. So there, you know, let's say you, and I think we do need lodging, you know, I'm not adverse to that. I'm primarily focused on food and beverage, which is it's going to take away the unique character of our city. It's going to become any town, USA, and that's what people like about historic towns that do limit formula businesses. You can go in and get something different. If you put in these formula businesses, that's what people are used to. They know what they're going to get, and that's where they're going to go. So, and in your earlier materials, you got a list of all of the cities, historic type cities, that have banned formula businesses. And I just don't understand why you're allowing them in at this point. I think it's a very bad policy decision. And I really think you should have some kind of a workshop, work on this language if you want to, take a look at our general plan and our historic plan. People spent hours, years developing that historic plan, and there are all kinds of recommendations in there on how the city should be developed. I mean, this is just a totally fly-by-night, unthought out proposal as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Are there any other comments?
No other speaker cards.
No more speaker cards, no more speakers? Okay. The basis for the rescission then was that the commission reviewed the ordinance and its effects on ability to attract new commercial establishments, restaurants, food centers, retail businesses, and visitor accommodations facilities into the city. And whereas new commercial establishments, restaurants, food centers, retail businesses, and visitor accommodation facilities offer a wide variety of goods, service, and merchandise to residents and visitors that are currently lacking in the city. And whereas the inability to attract new commercial establishments, restaurants, food centers, retail businesses, and visitor accommodation facilities into the city has caused evidence of financial and economic hardship to the city's revenues as a result of Ordinance 2007-04. And whereas the citizens, residents, and visitors of San Juan Bautista have suffered from the inability to purchase goods and merchandise or receive services that currently do not exist within the city, and from which new commercial establishments, restaurants, food centers, retail businesses, and visitor accommodation facilities could provide. And whereas the text contained within Ordinance 2007-04 portrays a negative tone for new businesses to invest in the city of San Juan Bautista and causes significant impediments to administer land use policies, goals, and objectives of the general plan for the promotion and support of lands at the western and eastern gateways. And whereas the economic and financial viability of the city depends on encouraging new investments in commercial uses throughout the city to maintain a healthy property tax base and provide dependable sales tax revenue source to meet the needs of the residents. And whereas new commercial development of business establishments, restaurants, retail, food centers, and visitor accommodation facilities will provide expanded employment opportunities and better job to housing balance throughout the city. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recommends to the City Council that Ordinance 2007-04 be rescinded. That is the rest of the package.
So at this point, we wouldn't adopt the new language. We would simply be taking the first step in the process.
Well, at this point, I think staff needs some time to go over what we were talking about, especially those definitions and things.
And actually, those definitions apply to each of those terms. I only brought up visitor accommodations,
Yeah.
but it applies to each of the three of them.
But that should be checked.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of what action is finally taken, whatever we bring up should be correct. So, any other comments or?
I don't feel comfortable voting for this resolution tonight without further study.
Okay. What would you like to propose?
A time schedule?
Okay.
What happened with the sign ordinance? Was it first rescinded?
That's something we've got
That
to
was
do.
recommended by the city council, wasn't it?
Well,
To have it
Not
They-
rescinded, revised.
revised, but that came through us through city council.
So, but we haven't finished that project yet either.
but does it have to be rescinded before it can be revised?
Before you can adopt another ordinance to replace it, you have to rescind the first one.
But at the same time,
Unless we're drastically revising it, then it wouldn't be a revision.
But, the council would have to revise the ordinance.
this,
You know,
the ordinance we're looking at, the resolution we're looking at tonight just says to rescind that motion. It doesn't offer a replacement.
No,
And
it
that
does.
cons-
That's the one. That's the one before
We're
it.
not rescinding anything, we're making recommendations.
Get recommendations
To the city
to
council.
rescind.
To rescind.
And then we also do
Okay,
the other
first-
ordinance before that.
Okay,
too.
first of all, we're saying if we do this, get rid of the one that's there. That's the big one.
Right, and then go
And
to
then
this
we're
one.
saying, we'll need a resolution to say so.
Uh-huh.
We recommend that you adopt this ordinance
one.
in its place.
Uh-huh.
And these are all these conditions of the new statute, which would allow, again, review of consideration of formula businesses. And I would not expect it would be easy to get through because this is San Juan Bautista and we want to keep that historical flavor.
Yeah.
But
and
this gives them the right to say, okay, guys, like I had one guy say, you tell me what you want, you get it. That's how bad they wanted to get in. So,
No.
if it ain't quality, it ain't San Juan Bautista. That's very bad grammar, but it's good planning.
And I think that was, in essence, what we were trying to draft is that we're going to make it user-friendly and positive. We're going to ask people to come, but we're going to remain strict to architectural standards that reflect our values here in San Juan Bautista. I think that's what we have to get across to potential investors, Now, unlike, and I'd just like to make one comment and everything, and I know Mrs. Garavonka has good intentions, and she cited in previous stuff there a number of cities that have this there. But Yeah, unlike San Juan Bautista, those cities that some of them should be referred to are large commercial districts where they have commercial districts outside their historical district. Here, this thing affects all commercial districts, and we feel is the West Gate and the South Gate should be treated different than the core because they're more automobile oriented and pedestrian friendly, and they're more automobile oriented commercial districts. But yet we want to retain the architectural standards that anything goes in there, but that and we're trying to say is the core of San Juan Bautista is really to preserve that early California history. And now she's saying is that the whole commercial district, both south and west, should be treated the same. And and I'm just saying is they're almost two different categories.
But they are gateways.
They are
which is
gateways, yeah.
Pretty critical, I think.
And there's only 3 ways to get into the city.
Okay, on this resolution, as you find definitions that need changing, you could put section such a definition is rescinded and changed to read. And you put the new one in. And that way we don't have to have a separate document for definitions and a separate document for the new ordinance. Within that, when you say get rid of this and put in that, get rid of this, because everything isn't in the ordinance. It's all those definitions and if you needed to just to put in the dark sky ordinance, whatever numbers, this would be the place that you want to make sure everything is included. Okay, commissioners, what do you want to do here? We can continue this to a time and place specific?
My answer is yes. I think we should review this, run it through staff again, based on the information that's been provided, based on what we've heard from the public, and to incorporate whatever changes we need to make it more conducive to our goals as far as the city is concerned. Do what is right for the city, and do what is right for its people as well. And to come back next month and see what we've got.
Staff, how much time would you want? 30 or 60 days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 30 days is fine.
Okay.
What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
We have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you come to the...
My name is Mariana Thomas. I live on Monterey Street. How much time would be as residents get to study the language? This is the language in this proposed ordinance is very tricky. If people are principled and they really understand this community, then I would certainly trust them to do what you are saying. But I do not see the world as such, nor do I see your definitions emphasizing only architectural aspects as being quite, fair. So I, as a resident, would like to study this, and I would like to give a detailed report before you make any decisions. Because I've invested 10 years here.
Oh, that's a fair question.
Okay.
Let's see. You would be getting the draft at the same time we would be getting it. And if you would ask staff to put you on a mailing list,
Okay.
she could send you a copy
I'd like
of
to
that
see the
section.
old and the new. The language is very important in this. and
Well,
I've been
no.
thinking
What you can do
Okay.
is through her get copies of the past reports and get on a list to get the copy of the new one.
Okay.
The old
Just-
one's on the website, on the
Okay.
city's website.
Okay, and if something isn't, then you have the right to ask. And
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the city council also brings this up and that you don't make a hasty decision on this at all. I mean, this is really alarming to me. personally.
this will be reviewed by the city attorney before the council gets it, before they work on it. I mean, he is their counsel. And at our point, we have a lot of experience doing this. But again, we are recommending. See, no matter what action this takes, it's a recommendation to the council. If we recommend no,
They'll
they
send it
have the
back.
final say, they can approve, deny, or modify, or no. If we say yes, based on what they hear at the next meeting, they can approve, modify, or deny, whatever. So this is not the final. This is the first cut to get it to council because we, the commission, feel there's a problem. And we feel this is a way of solving that problem. Now, the public has, that's why all through this thing I've asked, anybody have comments? For or against? But that's,
excuse me, sir. Maybe we need to publicize this for the public in the paper so they really are aware of what is being discussed because the public, obviously, a lot of the public is not here, as usual.
okay.
But it's a very important decision. Excuse me, I think I'm...
Isn't this a public hearing?
This is an action item.
Well, if it isn't, we can put it on there on the agenda for a full-fledged public hearing. We've had a lot of discussion tonight on this, but I think okay for the next one, let's make it post a public hearing, staff, and anybody who
Announce it in the paper.
we've announced that in the paper. Yeah.
Well, but everyone received notice of our agenda and our packet.
Right.
Well, does everyone in the audience? Everyone in the audience can receive electronic copies of the agenda. And if you don't know how to do that, please see Trish, and she'll put you on her electronic listserv.
See, that's how we send it out. You get an agenda and you say, "What is this?" You call the deputy city clerk and say, "You know, your position as a planning secretary or staff, what is this?" And she can send you that copy or put it online or whatever. But if you're not on the agenda, if you're not on the list to get an agenda, you just say, "Hey, please put my name on there." It costs you nothing to get on there, but you will get all these notices. But again, the problem with sending them out is nobody generally reads them until after the action is taken, and then it's too late. You're at the right time doing this.
I was at your last meeting, and I did hear the proposal of the rescinding of this. And I knew at that time, I felt, and this was a month ago, I said, this is very tricky. If you have responsible people sitting on the boards, that's going to work. But if you loosen the language and open the door, and you have very irresponsible people who are looking only for the bottom line, you're opening the door to changing this community. So I do feel that a public hearing, I will take care of my part of it about getting it in agenda and getting the details. But I do think a public hearing on this is really important. If in fact the personality of this community does not agree with the general plan, okay, the residents, then we need to know that. But I always hear that historic town, the mission, maintenance, etc., etc. So that means we have to be creative to make that definition clear and preserve it. That's why someone has moved here. But if the majority of the town, or 90%, feels differently, then perhaps either I'm in the wrong place or they're in the wrong community, etc., because we are a small community, and those of us who have a vision for it and want to build it, we want to make sure that there are enough of us here to do that.
Okay. Regarding the commission, there are certain things that the commission has the final say on. You know, we can issue a permit. You have another say. That can be appealed to the city council. If you are not satisfied with the action of the city council, you have the right to go to court. But just because the commission issues a permit doesn't mean it's written on a tablet. It means that unless it is appealed, it stands. And what happens again, people don't look to appeal until the project is halfway up. So as a citizen, it is important as a citizen to keep track of what's happening. You keep track of me and the commission, you keep track of the mayor and the council. You know, if you don't like any one of us, if you don't like me, you tell the mayor he frankly should go. If you don't like the mayor, there's another election coming up in another year or so. See, so it's that American process that makes it work. So it isn't a government of preference, it's a government of laws, and it should be. because you go right, remember I went back on all these different things to make sure everything was said, the ordinance was written, the different parts of the findings were done. All of that is based on, if you want to challenge that, at least you know up front what we said. Okay? Thank you. Okay, staff, where are we? So we want to give, do you want 60 days?
Just my only comment, I find it somewhat offensive that it's inferred that future planning commissioners are not going to have the same value to protect our city as you people have in the past. And I find that hard to swallow because I have a lot of faith in people, and as they're appointed to commissioners, they're very responsible, and they're not irresponsible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you'll find that in elections, remember, the planning commissioners are appointed by the council.
Yeah.
The council is voted on by the public. So if the public votes in 5 turkeys, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get commissioners.
10 turkeys.
You're going to have 10. So just remember, you got to vote, and you got to get involved with the city's future. Okay, 30 or 60 days.
We can come back in 30 days, and then we can hold a hearing.
Okay. 30 days.
I don't see why we can't keep talking about it in 30 days.
Yes,
You know, that's, and if we decide to approve a recommendation to the city council, then we can come to that conclusion at that time. That would be with the support of our community as well.
Something else, if you have an organization and they're talking about it, you always have the right to ask a member of staff or the commission to come by and get some feelings. You won't get a decision. You'll get, at least you'll have another ear listening to what your organization is saying. Okay? So we'll continue this item 30 days, basically the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission, which is February...
and to include
February 4th.
to include all the changes that we talked about today.
Yes.
Right.
And the input we got from the public.
Right, and then we'll start again.
And then we'll review that at that point.
Maybe for another 30 days. Okay. This is government in action, folks. If you have kids, or high school kids, this is where they should be coming to a meeting, because this is where their citizen action is at its ground level. There is no level below this. I think this is where this action is. So any high school student should be here to find out how it's done. Okay, the next item, 7B on your agenda, is consideration of approval of a site and design review for a major project, an ARCO service station site at the corner of 156 and the Alameda. The applicant is Harvey Dodwell, and we're talking about draft resolution 2014 something, and review of an environmental analysis report. So, let's go to that one. Staff, you want to kick off with why we're here?
Yes, members of the commission, chairman, the property is situated at the southwest corner of the State Highway 156 in the Alameda. It's about 1.12 acres in size. It's been in the general plan for since the late 70s, early 80s, and the property has sat dormant for the last 30 years. And the owner just recently expressed interest in developing a retail fuel station, convenient mini market, and a quick-serve restaurant. Part of the interest is due primarily to our discussions over the last several months of Ordinance 2007-04. The ordinance has been in effect since 2007, over 6 years, and has projected an anti-business attitude to encourage new development from coming into our city. We feel that this development here has a lot of features that could be very positive to the city of San Juan Bautista, and as an offset of that is that the Planning Commission and the City Council has demonstrated their initiative to develop programs, plannings, and impact fee restructuring, and streamlining permit administration to process and foster an atmosphere of new and creative commercial investments to be located in our city. It goes without saying is that the City Council has been holding public hearings and public input on capital improvement districts, and we've identified over 85 different projects that we have funding for that amounts to millions of dollars, and without a reinvestment into our community, it creates a fiscal and financial hardship. The proposed project consists of developing a 6,144 square foot single-story building, fuel island, and 12 fuel dispensing stations, 35 on-site parking spaces, trash enclosures, open space, landscaping, on-site storm drain retention and biofilter, joint common driveway utilization, and existing San Juan Inn, and directional signs, traffic channelization along the Alameda, and on-site lighting. The 6,000 square foot building is divided into two commercial components of a mini convenience store and a central retail fuel checkout counter and a dining room and drive-through restaurant. Access to the property will be from the south entrance, and exit along 156 in the Alameda. Exit only would reduce the traffic congestion to the Alameda and cause, by delaying the exit, it would create an exit-only driveway at the northwest corner of the property and its common driveway to the south. On-site layout of the fuel line is positioned to accommodate the flow of that traffic to where the exit can occur to the 156 quite easily without causing delay and congestion. Lighting proposed would be meeting the dark skies, and it would have deflector shields and east orientation away from the residential structure. Again, the environmental consequences of a project like this determines that it's an environmental effect. A checklist and initial study has been prepared and identifying the potential impacts that the project could have. A determination was made that by the initial study that the proposed project would have a significant effect on the environment because the city has agreed to incorporate some mitigation measures, and attached in the checklist we've identified the aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, greenhouse gas emissions, hazardous waste, hydrological water quality, land use planning, noise, population housing, public service, transportation, and utility service systems. In determining all of this based on the initial study, we find that the plan conforms to our general plan. It conforms to the zoning district it is, and so we established some findings that the project is consistent with the zoning regulations. Its project is designed to exemplify the site architectural intent of the zoning district, and the project will minimize any potential adverse effects to the surrounding area by the mitigations. The project is consistent with the standards and requirements of the San Juan Municipal Code, and that the project will mitigate the impacts to a less than significant by establishing conditions of approval. The proposed project will not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood and will not have a detrimental effect on public welfare. And we've identified these mitigation measures through the environmental initial study, and we've come up with 32 mitigation measures, and I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I'm going to leave it to the commissioners to ask and direct those. Okay?
Okay. Is the applicant here? Would you come to the podium, sir, and tell us about who you are and what your project is? Anything you'd like to add or comments that you'd like us to hear before we start a discussion?
I came here last time, so whatever the staff asked us to change, I did everything according to that to make it a friendly development. So if anything else needed, I'm ready to accept that and change accordingly. So this will be a good project. I would like to be a part of the community. That's about it. If you have any question, I'm ready to answer.
I can barely hear you, sir.
If anybody have a question, I can answer.
Okay. Thank you, then. We may have questions of you. The commission may have questions of you later, but it's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And I think what Harvey was saying was that internally here is that he's been very accommodating too, and we met with him very early. That says that we did not want a standard service station logo. We wanted it to be incorporated and make it a symbol into the thing. And he's hired an architect that has established some exterior architecture. I think the last meeting it said it was maybe a little bit too southwesterny, and we changed it with a little bit more pitched and hip roofs and some tile roof that is maybe keeping with the San Juan Inn so that it blends in with that area that's right adjacent to it.
Okay. Sir, you would like to address the commission? I can
Yes,
tell.
I'm part of the team with Harvey Dodwall, and my name is John McCormick, and I'm a commercial real estate broker.
Okay.
And so I'm here, and thank you again for allowing us to come back after our pre-development meeting. And I think we listened, and we've done, I think, a great job of giving the city a lot of alternatives on how we can lay this out and utilize that property. We also have Alan Andretti from MH Engineering, should we have any technical questions for him.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, so what do we want to do? Want to talk about this?
Well, one of the first comments I have on page 2, the 12 fuel dispensing stations. Isn't that Costco sized? Doesn't Costco have 12? Seems big.
There are 6 fuel islands,
Yeah.
but there'll be gas pumps
Back and
on
forth,
each
yeah.
side, so that's 12. So it won't be 12 islands.
Right.
It'll only be 6 islands.
But that's
But they
what
were-
Costco is.
You had 8 last time.
We had 8 last time.
Yeah.
We have 12 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's grown.
Yeah, we lowered it to 6 fuel islands, 12 stations rather than 8. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought it was pumps.
yeah,
Okay.
the pumps. I call them fuel dispensaries. Yeah.
Okay, I guess some of the big comments had to do with, well, looking at your packet then. Some of the big comments, and just for anybody's information, I was not here at the last meeting, but I did in fact watch it streamed on CMAP TV. And that's something else. If you miss a meeting, you can go to CMAP TV, and look for the public hearings of San Juan Bautista, and you'll be able to watch that whole 2 hours of that meeting. And so if you want to go back in history and pick up a couple of items to get ready for the next one, they're all available, right?
If you have charter, though, right? I don't get
No,
that.
I did it on the computer.
On the computer,
Yeah.
okay.
CMAP TV.
Okay.
And it was all there. So for those of you, if you missed something, or if you got into it late and want to catch up, that's a good way to do it. Okay, the last time we were talking about, there was issues that came up. The fact that it's there by the San Juan Inn, I would be looking for some harmony between the inn and the station and its complex, because this is one location. When you look over there, I'd want to see something that architecture flows. I know the neighbors were polled, and that was good. There's always a light pollution issue, and the key thing here is we're lighting the area, not the sky, and that's why we have a dark sky ordinance. Now, issue of vehicle speeds. Now, granted, Caltrans does everything on 156, but we're also going to be taking a lot of cars off the road and putting them into this site, and taking them out of there to cross a couple of lanes of traffic to go west and to make turn into 156 to go east to Hollister. So you have a high visibility thing, and people are going to see you from quite a ways. I think one of the key things I saw was if it looks too southwesty, it doesn't belong here. And I was looking like modern storefronts. I think we're looking for something on the historical thing. Granted, it's across 156, but I don't want to be on the commission that created 2 cities, San Juan 1 and San Juan 2. I want to see integration of architecture and flow and copacetic, whatever the words are that people are using today, so that both sides relate to San Juan Bautista. I've seen this happen in other cities where Old Town stays old and you have a whole modern complex that